if you think of Bitcoin as an online nation state, that would be true. And there will be other nation states. The moment that Facebook tokenize, even with DM, they have their own system of money. They have their own rules, organization, mission. That's a complex adaptive society, and that's a nation state. 3.5 billion people, it's the largest nation state on earth. How powerful is that? This is why everybody's bloody terrified of Facebook having their own currency.
Right.
So they have to peg it to the dollar, right? Because that's a nation state. So, but we've created the foundations for nation states. And where this is all going is the metaverse. So the answer from the right is trickle-down economics and tax cuts on corporations. Right. But that has never worked.
Right.
Just does not work. And it's proven time and time again that it does not work. Raising taxes on the rich. That's the left's great argument. Well, the rich simply aren't rich enough to pay for anything because there's 200 odd million of that lower income bracket. So how is this going to help? Yes, I understand rich people don't pay their fair share of taxes in certain respects because there's more loopholes available. Fine. But generally, this is not going to answer your question. This is not going to solve the world's problems. It's not going to pay off the government debt. The other one is, well, cut interest rates. That's the usual answer. Well, we kind of know that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And that makes the rich richer. The people with access to the capital have more capital and more leverageability, and they make more money, and everybody else gets screwed. Then there's deficit spending, the fiscal stimulus. Fiscal stimulus does put money in the hands of poorer people, but you debase the currency.
Right.
So their assets go up and they don't get anywhere. It's okay if you do it for living improvements like healthcare, because that's probably a net benefit. You probably don't mind being slightly poorer in the future, but healthier. That's a trade-off. That's an okay trade-off. You may want to take it, you may not want to take it. It's up to the individual. The Austrian approach is let it all fucking burn. Well, it's way too late.
Yeah.
Everybody's an Austrian economist until it happens to you. And I'm a business cycle guy. I get it. Yeah. But we lost that train left the station in 1997.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that a lot of these, all roads lead back to this Austrian worldview, though. Because so we've got wealth redistribution. If you tax the rich, you're going to incentivize the rich to hold their assets in something that's untouchable, right? That road leads to Bitcoin. Trickle-down economics, more debasement. That road leads to Bitcoin. Cut rates, more debasement. That road leads to Bitcoin. Or you can have this deficit spending, fiscal stimulus, also creates debasement, which leads to Bitcoin. So I have a very hard time seeing how this doesn't end in a more Austrian world. Yes,
but the Austrian view can't prevail right now in terms of creative destruction. It has to
blow itself up, or I agree with you. The Austrian view would be
whimper itself out.
Yes. Instead of step back and let it burn, this thing is going to gas its own fire until there's nothing left but Bitcoin.
It's gonna play out.
Yeah.
However that plays out, and there are potential things that can save this. The other approach is extending the working age even further to push out the payments of pensions and the offset the demographics. It doesn't help. There's too many people in the workforce as it is, as we've kind of proven in this discussion. So those are the normal ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I ask you a question here. Is there an incentive embedded in all this for population reduction?
Of course there is. Why do you think the population is reducing? Everywhere. Americans had the smallest, and here is the self-balancing mechanism of humanity. Because what is about to happen is the exponential age, where technology takes over everything. Every lower income job, every middle income job, and half the high end jobs. And this is the problem we have to solve. And so that whole thing comes, and if you get it right, and here's the optimism, your GDP per capita explodes because the population shrinks. So millennials are not having kids in the same numbers, and nor will Gen Z. And we've seen it in Japan, we've seen it in Europe, every Asian country, same. So all of the I think we'll probably peak at about 9.5 billion people, 10 billion people globally. And then we're probably likely to decline for however long, a few hundred years, whatever it may be, because robots are going to replace humans. So we don't need humans. So humans on a simple level will just say, well, I can't afford to have kids, which has been partly what's going on. That's what happened, particularly in Europe. And then it becomes, well, I don't know what job I've got. And poorer countries don't need as many humans to look after family units for income and all of that kind of stuff. So that whole equation changes with technology. But technology is going to change a lot of this. And within that, I think is where some of the potential optimism can lie. And I think the optimism comes for me for two things. One is the formation of online nation states, which I think are communities. You see me talking a lot about community tokens and all of this stuff. You know, if you think of Bitcoin as an online nation state, that would be true. And there will be other nation states. The moment that Facebook tokenize, even with DM, they have their own system of money. They have their own rules, organization, mission. That's a complex adaptive society, and that's a nation state. 3.5 billion people, it's the largest nation state on earth. How powerful is that? This is why everybody's bloody terrified of Facebook having their own currency.
Right.
So they have to peg it to the dollar. Right? Because that's a nation state. So, but we've created the foundations for nation states. And where this is all going is the metaverse. The metaverse is discovering the Americas again, or even a new solar system. What you're doing, if you think of the world as constrained by its own GDP because of humans, productivity, resources, the metaverse has none of that. So there is a possibility that the metaverse allows us people to earn incomes in a world free of the constraints, free of the debt shackle, in this new world of crypto that allows us to create our own worlds in the way that we want it. And they are kind of, if you go to its logical conclusion, it's kind of, we create our own fake world however we want it to be. And you can live in whatever world you want. Like you and I will live in different online worlds. You'll be on, one social media site, I'll be in the other. We'll be reading different articles. We live in different worlds already.
Right.
Our worlds overlap quite a lot, but we live in different worlds.
Yeah.
But sooner or later, I can be in a room with different people.
Right.
And they can be all around the world. And they can all be all like-minded, which creates all this splits and a realignment of what states are. And this whole thing of this fourth turning is we're going to a very, very different world, much like the post-British Empire world was very different to that world.
Right. Raoul, here you're speaking to my soul, actually, because ever since I started playing massive online multiplayer games when I was 13, I was 20, 25 years ago, I was 11, I had this deep intuition that this was going to be where the world was going. It's like there were just so many factors that could be economized in the digital world that you can't do in the real world. There's a lot of advantages. And now that we see tech becoming increasingly immersive too, like right now we're still talking through a screen, you and I'm looking at a laptop, we're
but this, don't forget, if we'd done this 2 years ago, we'd have done it in studio together.
Right, exactly.
We've already transitioned to this is normal. Yes.
So there's been this accelerant on the use of digital technology, but now the immersiveness of digital technology is also growing in tandem. So my long-standing thesis for the world is that the The real world is becoming a video game. And so to hear you say that everything's headed into the metaverse, that resonates with me very loudly.
So the question you and I need to think about is, okay, a full immersive metaverse experience is 15, 20 years away. Now, the metaverse is not one place. It's not one thing.
Right.
I think of it as like this digital fluidity where we can move around, we do our things. Yeah. We live in the real world, in this digital world, augmented reality, virtual reality. That's all coming. We know that. How the hell do you stop this holing out of people in the meantime? And this is the story now of, I think, and this is really contentious, I think the central bank digital currencies are going to give governments an opportunity to fiscally stimulate in a way that's more fair. Because I think they can therefore put money in the right people. We have to go towards a UBI world, whether we like it or not, until we can replace that income by metaverse and other income. We're seeing it. People are earning money in Axie Infinity. There's stuff going on.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet. How do we get through this next 15 years, right? That's what I'm really worried about. This next 15, 20 years is about as hard as it comes. We're going to have deflationary forces on a gigantic scale. Jobs are going to be replaced. We've got debasement of currency going on. We've got the battle of getting crypto mainstream, that governments don't over-regulate it. And, all of the things we've got 20 years of a battle here.